Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down some new research that might just change the way you prep for your next big test. And it's all based on a really fascinating scientific review.
You know that feeling, right? Your heart's pounding, palms are getting a little sweaty, that sense of dread right before a huge exam. We've all been there. But what if one of the best ways to fight that stress is already in your pocket? Well, scientists are now giving us some pretty solid answers.
Okay, so let's dive in. Before we can talk about a fix, we really need to understand the problem. Researchers have a name for this whole experience: exam anxiety. And trust me, it's a way bigger deal than you might think. So this isn't just, getting the jitters. According to the research, it's a specific psychological and physical response. It's that intense wave of worry mixed with very real stuff happening in your body, like your heart beating faster or finding it hard to breathe. And the stakes here, they're really high. We're not just talking about feeling uncomfortable for a little while. The science shows a direct line between high exam anxiety and lower grades. And in some cases, it can even lead to students dropping out of university entirely. It is a massive issue for students all over the world.
Now, just take a look at this data. The range is kind of staggering, right? In Malaysia, it's around 18% of students. That number jumps to 33% in Saudi Arabia. And get this, for medical students in Ethiopia, it was over half, 52%. That just shows you how significant and varied this challenge is depending on where you are.
Okay, so with a problem this big, the hunt is on for solutions. And specifically, researchers are looking for things that are easy to access, affordable, and don't involve any medication. And this is where the scientific method really shines, using one of its most powerful tools to get to the truth. So, the researchers didn't just run one little experiment. No, they conducted what's called a systematic review. You can think of it as the ultimate investigation. They gathered up all the high-quality studies on this topic to see what all the evidence, when you put it together, really tells us. It's how you get a super reliable, comprehensive answer.
And let me tell you, this process is no joke. It's incredibly rigorous. This research funnel here shows they started with this giant pool of 453 potential studies. After weeding out all the irrelevant papers, they critically screened the remaining 118 for quality. And in the end, only the 10 absolute strongest, best-designed experimental studies made the final cut.
All right, so after all that meticulous filtering, what did these top 10 studies actually find? I mean, does listening to music before a test really make a difference? Well, the answer was surprisingly clear.
Get this, the results were pretty much unanimous. An incredible 9 out of the 10 studies found that listening to music had a statistically significant effect on reducing exam anxiety. The crucial point here is that this wasn't a fluke. It's a consistent pattern that was seen across multiple, totally separate experiments.
And here's what's so cool. The effect wasn't just in students' heads. Their bodies physically changed. On one hand, yes, students reported feeling a lot less anxious, but their bodies were literally backing it up with hard data. We're talking measurable drops in blood pressure, slower heart rates, and even lower levels of the stress hormone cortisol.
Now, in the spirit of good science, we've got to talk about the one study that was the odd one out. It involved nursing students who had these long 60-minute sessions. And what's really interesting is that some participants in that specific study actually said they thought the therapy was a waste of time, which just goes to show that the context, the length, and how you feel about the whole thing, it really matters.
So knowing that it works for most people is great, but what's the actual prescription? What kind of music should you listen to? For how long? The research gives us some surprisingly practical, solid advice.
The authors of the review pretty much summed it up perfectly themselves. This one sentence gives us an incredibly clear, actionable takeaway. Just 15 minutes of instrumental classical music right before an exam can be enough to make a significant difference.
But here's the really good news. There's a ton of flexibility. The studies looked at a huge range of methods. Some were just that single 15-minute session, but others were 8-week programs. The music was all over the place too, from Beethoven to classical Turkish music to even just letting students pick their own songs. And they listened in all sorts of ways, on headphones, with music playing in the room, the whole shebang.
So what's the big picture takeaway here? This research has some pretty significant implications, not just for individual students trying to get through finals week, but for how universities and schools should think about student well-being.
Let's break down the crucial points. First, music is an incredibly versatile and cheap tool for your mental health. It's a strategy that doesn't require a prescription and can be used right alongside other kinds of support. The fact that even one short session can work against that immediate stress is a huge deal. And most importantly, this isn't just theory. It's backed by hard data, both from how students feel and how their bodies physically react.
And on a global scale, findings like these are more important than ever. The paper even points out that promoting simple, effective wellness strategies like this one directly contributes to major international goals, like the United Nations mission for ensuring good health and well-being for all. So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. We spend hours making flashcards, rewriting notes, and just cramming information. But based on this evidence, maybe it's time we start taking our mental preparation just as seriously. Your pre-exam playlist might just be one of the most important study aids you have.